everyone. Welcome to Grace Every Day, a podcast for Christian wives of blue collar guys. Today's podcast is inspired by a friend of mine. I was having a conversation with her a few days ago, and we hadn't talked in a little while. We hadn't talked in a couple of months, probably, or maybe even several months. And one of the first things that she said when we got on the phone, we were doing a FaceTime video, is, hey, it's so great to catch up with you. She said, I haven't really been on socials because I wanted my thoughts back. And I thought, wow, that's a profound thought, isn't it? And so I wanted to do a podcast episode digging into how we can get our thoughts back. First off, there's nothing wrong with social media and using it as a tool, using it as a healthy way, using it as a tool to connect with others and keep up with others. I know I have friends from, years and years ago who we don't pick up the phone and talk regularly, but I do kind of keep up with them on social media and see what's going on in their lives. And that's pretty neat. And then obviously Mac and I both use social media as a way to reach the people who are following us, right? Our podcast listeners and those who are reading books and watching videos and those who are looking for inspiration and encouragement and us sharing some of the insights that we've learned on our journeys. So there's nothing wrong with social media. However, I think to my friend's point, a lot of times social media can derail our thoughts and distract us from our focus, from our priorities, from our daily agenda. It also is very important for us to realize that sometimes those social media posts are influencing our thoughts, either positively or negatively, but be very intentional about what effect that is having on our thoughts and recognizing, hey, sometimes we need to decrease or get away from social media in order to get our thoughts back. So love that concept. Now, as my friend and I were catching up, it was really great to hear from her. She's started a new role, a new job, and she's got some great ideas, and we were brainstorming. And I thought, one of the things that's really, really eye-opening, I think, is that a lot of times we have used social media to replace those conversations. I just shared with you that, I have friends that I haven't talked to in years over the phone, but I do sort of keep up with them on social media from time to time. I see a post or some pictures, and yet there's nothing that replaces the absolute authentic connection of just picking up the phone or getting on a video chat with someone or having an actual in-person meeting, because social media can give us a false sense of connection, but it's not a true connection because there's simply just a one-way snapshot of information, right? A snapshot of a moment in time and a moment in someone else's life, but it doesn't replace the true, authentic sharing of real conversations and real get-togethers and connecting, because that's what deepens relationships over time, is that authentic connections, those heart-to-heart conversations, the real, the coffee dates or the lunch meetings or the get on the phone conversations. And social media, a lot of times we need to be careful because while it can be great to keep up with people, it does not replace those authentic connections and the relationship building time. See, relationships do require an investment of our time, right? And certainly there are going to be different depths of relationships. You're not going to have a really strong, deep relationship with everybody in your circle that you know. There are going to be some relationships that are more superficial or less strong than others, and that's natural. But remember that relationships are an investment of time. They do require an investment of time. And so the social media posts and pictures of somebody's vacation and updates, those can be good, but they are not a substitute for real, authentic relationship time. Leadership is influence. Influence is based on those relationships. And if we're not investing time into a relationship, it's never going to be a very strong, healthy relationship, because relationships require time. They require an investment of time and energy. And if we're not willing to put that energy in, then we need to recognize where that level of relationship fits in our life. Again, there are going to be some relationships that are more superficial, acquaintances you knew, people you maybe went to high school with, and yet they're not in your day-to-day circle. There are going to be relationships that are much closer to your heart and your home, or even your work, and you are going to need to spend more time in those relationships. And then recognizing that we cannot have a deep, strong, healthy, connected relationship with everybody we know. It's simply not possible. So being intentional about choosing those relationships that we do want to invest more time in. So anyway, that was just a bit of a side note, but being careful not to replace those relationship encounters with social media. So, as my friend and I were talking, and she was saying, hey, just, a couple of months ago, I was going through a couple of life changes and a job change and all that. She's like, I needed to get off social media and get my thoughts back. And I thought, number one, how awesome is it that she realized that social media for her at that particular time in life, or that season in life, just really wasn't helping her be the best version of herself. And then number two, what I was super impressed about is just having the strength and the courage to step away from something that she realized wasn't serving her in that season. Because a lot of times I think we've identified things that aren't serving us, and yet we don't necessarily have the courage or the character to walk away from them. And so many times in life, we cannot reach what we want because we won't let go of something that's holding us back or something that's holding us down. So I was super inspired and impressed by her courage and just saying, hey, this is not serving me in this time. I'm going to walk away from that. Now, again, I'm not here to bash social media. Probably you saw the link for this podcast episode where I shared it on social media. So again, it can be very constructive. But what I really wanted to just us to have just a reminder, I guess, in this podcast episode is that sometimes social media can influence us and influence our thoughts. And again, if it's having too much influence over our thoughts, at what point do they stop being our thoughts and start being someone else's thoughts? And then two, regardless of whether it's social media or a habit or something, a lifestyle choice that we've made that's not serving us, sometimes we recognize the need to decrease or eliminate it in our life, and yet we don't have the character to do so, to walk away from it. I love Dr. Henry Cloud's definition of character. He says, character is the ability to meet the demands of reality. Character is the ability to meet the demands of reality. He goes on to say integrity is the courage to do so. So anytime we recognize in our life, whether it's a habit or a lifestyle choice or even a relationship that is not serving us in the season, or perhaps not at all, the reality that we have to face is, hey, this is not moving me forward. This is not helping me become the best version of myself, the version that God intended me to become. And then that's the reality. Character is having the ability to meet that head on, and integrity is having the courage to take action based on that awareness, right? So being first aware of something that's not serving us, getting our thoughts back, and then having the courage to say, I need to decrease or just, take this out of my life completely, maybe for a time, maybe for permanently, right? Sometimes there are things that we just need to say, hey, I need to put that to the side for a little while, or sometimes we need to just say, this no longer serves me ever, period. And that sometimes that's going to be different for everyone. It was interesting. I was thinking back this past 2 weeks, as I record this, the last 2 weeks of July have been just super busy for me and Mac both. We've traveled pretty heavily. We spoke in Baton Rouge, and from there we drove all the way almost to Chicago, a little place called Joliet in Illinois. And we spoke there several times for a construction company over there, a couple of different sessions. And from there we drove home. So it was like a 6-day road trip with like 2,400 miles. several different hotels along the way. And so I call it hotel hopping. Like you check in a hotel and you stay one night, you get up the next day and you leave and you spend the next night in another hotel. And so you're always unpacking, packing, unpacking. And then we got home from that trip and we were only home for just a couple days. And then we flew to California to speak there in El Monte, California, near Los Angeles or San Bernardino. So great opportunities, and we're certainly blessed. And, we got back from all of that traveling happened within about, 12-day period. And we got back and it's, it can be tiring when you're on the go like that and just, again, packing, unpacking, repacking, washing clothes and repacking and going again. And we wouldn't trade it for anything. Absolutely not. But it can be tiring. And so I was reflecting this week as we got back from that travel. We've got a few weeks at home. And so I was thinking all of the things that I need to do for this August. And I was reflecting back that, just a few years ago, one of the things that I realized was not serving me in this season was teaching group fitness. And it's one of those things that I love teaching group fitness. I miss that. I miss pouring into people and encouraging them to lead themselves well in a physical dimension. It's not much different than getting on stage and encouraging them to lead themselves well emotionally, right? Spiritually. And yet I miss that group fitness dynamic of leading people through that, those relationships that came from that and just the fun of it. But I recognized a few years back that with our traveling and, it's not unusual for us to have a couple of weeks like we just had with all of the travel. And I no longer had the time and energy to put into teaching group fitness. And so there's definitely no way that I could have taught 5 group fitness classes the last 2 weeks, each week while we were traveling the way we were. It just would not have happened. My whole point in sharing that is that sometimes the things that we need to decrease or minimize or put aside in life are sometimes fun things, or sometimes things that aren't bad things. They're just not the best things. And, whether it's social media or something else in your life that you're saying, hey, I need to spend a little less time there. I need to get my thoughts and intentions back. And this is not serving me, right? Recognizing whatever that is, even if it's a good thing, it may just not be the best thing or the best thing for you. And it can be hard to walk away from some of those things. I still miss teaching group fitness. And perhaps there will be a season in life where it comes back around. Who knows? But walking away from that was one of the sacrifices to do what we do today and traveling and teaching and speaking. And again, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's just recognizing that whenever we are reaching forward towards something in life, sometimes we've got to let go of something that's holding us back. And that's called sacrifice, right? And I've said it before, but the thing about sacrifice, we always feel the loss first. And so I guarantee you, my friend, when she recognized she wanted to get her thoughts back and step away from social media, I didn't ask her this, but I guarantee you she would have said, I feel the loss of keeping in touch over social media before I got the benefits of recognizing I've got my thoughts back and my thoughts where they need to be. So, all again, just to say the power of intention is something that we can be mindful of. And when we're mindful of it, more aware of it, we can be more intentional of applying it. And like anything, the results and these leadership principles and personal growth principles only come when we are intentional about applying them. It's not enough just to know the principle or the concept. We actually have to do something with that information, right? Because when we change who we are, that's going to change what we do. And what we do is going to influence or impact who we are. And so when you think about it, there are no small choices when they add up over time to be big, to have big impacts in our life. So life is tough, but God's grace is always enough. Until next time.